Diplomatic efforts to avert war over Ukraine have intensified, with Russia's foreign minister saying he believed there was still room for dialogue on Moscow's request for a new security deal with the West. It comes after the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed his nation and referred to Western intelligence estimates of an imminent Russian attack. He said, "They tell us it will be February the 16th. We will make it a day of unity." He also said his country wants to solve all issues exclusively through negotiations. Tonight, President Biden held a phone conversation with Boris Johnson to discuss the crisis, and both men agreed there still remained a crucial window for diplomacy. But America has announced it's closing its embassy in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, and relocating to the west of the country. Russia has massed more than 130,000 troops on Ukraine's borders, but President Putin still insists he has no plans for an invasion. Let's get the very latest from our correspondent Sarah Rainsford, who's in Kyiv for us tonight. Sarah.
Well, Clive, those warnings of a possible Russian incursion have really escalated in recent days. So here in Ukraine, you might expect there to be real tension, a sense of panic, possibly people rushing for the exit. But in fact, Western embassies have been evacuating their staff, but Ukrainians are staying put and doing their very best to try to stay calm. In fact, tonight, there are couples out filling the restaurants here in Kyiv celebrating Valentine's Day. And yet this country is now stuck in the midst of a very real crisis, a standoff between Russia and the West, and neither side, in public at least, looks ready to blink. Russia is still building up its forces, parading its potential near Ukraine's border. So much so that Western governments are saying an invasion could be launched within days now. The war warnings coming thick and fast. So Volodymyr Zelensky has addressed the nation, assuring Ukrainians their country is confident, stronger than ever, that Russia is trying to scare them, but they won't succumb. And the talks to defuse this crisis have been intensifying. Today it was the German Chancellor's turn in town, showing support for Kyiv, seeking ways to get Russia to pull back its troops. President Zelensky underlined that won't be by Ukraine dropping its right to join NATO. Tomorrow, the German leader heads to Moscow.
I'm making it clear once again here in Kiev that Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable for Germany. We therefore expect Russia to take clear steps to de-escalate the current tensions.
In Russia, the foreign minister was shown urging President Putin to keep talking to the West. It is worth it, he said. But Boris Johnson spoke to the US president today too, and both are still sounding the alarm.
We are on the edge of a precipice, but there is still time for President Putin to step back. And what we're urging is for everybody to engage in dialogue, for a conversation to take place, and for the Russians to avoid what I think everybody, certainly everybody in the UK, can see would be a disastrous mistake.
It can be hard to make a connection between all the politicians' warning of imminent all-out war, even the bombing of this city, Kyiv, and how things actually feel here on the ground. Because even as the negotiations, the diplomacy continue, so does life here pretty much as normal. Although beneath the surface, people do say they're feeling increasingly nervous now.
What we have to say and what we have to do is to be in panic and being afraid every hour of our life. We don't want to live like that, and we just want to live.
Yeah, we are patient and ready for anything.
So we just hope that our city will be safe and our families will be safe.
For now, the musicians play on. Even the school trips haven't stopped, as Ukrainians still can't quite believe the worst predictions. Sarah Rainsford, BBC News, Kyiv.
President Putin has long made it clear he sees Ukrainians and Russians as one people linked by history. But his desire to keep Ukraine within Russia's sphere of influence is threatened in part by Ukraine's wish to join NATO, the defence alliance of countries in Europe, along with Canada and America. Well, since the end of the Cold War, several countries have applied to become members, expanding the organisation, pushing it towards the east. Ukraine has long wanted to join, and now the West believes Russia may be willing to go to war to stop it. So what's motivating the Kremlin in these next crucial hours? Steve Rosenberg reports now from Moscow.
8 years after Russia annexed Crimea, is Moscow on the brink of another invasion of Ukraine? The West seems to think so, but what's the Kremlin's view? Western leaders may be warning of an imminent Russian military escalation in Ukraine, but Moscow dismisses all of that as hype, hysteria. And if you look at the way the state media here has been covering the Ukraine story, you'll see that the picture presented to the Russian public is the polar opposite of how the West sees things. So, according to that Kremlin picture, Russia has no plans for an invasion. Instead, it's America who's the aggressor and pouring weapons into Ukraine. It's NATO that's threatening Russia by expanding eastwards. Still, that doesn't explain why Moscow is massing more than 100,000 troops right now near Ukraine's border and why it's launched large-scale military exercises in the region. So what is Vladimir Putin's aim? That is a difficult question to answer because no one's quite sure. Some in the West think this is all about Russia trying to force Ukraine back into Moscow's orbit. Some believe the Kremlin's objective is much wider, to carve out a new sphere of influence for itself in Europe, basically to dismantle the post-Cold War European security order and to push NATO back. Today, with Moscow sensing a lack of unity in Europe, and perhaps feeling that America's too busy with problems at home, a resurgent Russia may feel that this is the moment to take action. But if there was all-out war with Ukraine, how would the Russian public react? It's hard to see the public here supporting a large-scale conflict with Ukraine. Many Russians have said to me that they see Ukrainians almost like brothers. There are very deep cultural and historical ties. War is the last thing that people want here. But it won't be the public that decides this. It'll be the president. So what happens next? Well, that may depend on whether President Putin is willing to compromise over Ukraine and European security, even if he doesn't get everything he wants, like an end to NATO enlargement eastwards. Whether he's willing to reach a deal or determined to continue with coercive diplomacy. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Let's go live to the White House and our North America editor, Sarah Smith, who's there. Sarah, do officials have any better sense where you are, which way they think Mr. Putin might jump?
Well, it does seem, Clive, as though every day the dark warnings here about the possibility of imminent armed conflict get louder. And as you said earlier, the US are now evacuating their embassy in Kiev and moving everybody to the western city of Lviv. And that's because they say they continue to see military build-up of significant military capability just over the last 2 days on the Ukrainian border. And so, although the White House says that they continue to say they just don't know whether President Putin has made the decision to invade or not, they're worried about those troop movements. There is still a path open for diplomacy, is the message from the White House, but coming with increased scepticism about whether or not that's what Russia actually wants. The message today seemed to be, if Russia is serious about talks, in that case, they need to see some de-escalation on the border. Send your troops back to the home garrisons, was the message from the Pentagon spokesman. The one glimmer of hope, though, is that after that call between President Biden and Boris Johnson, a statement said that there is a crucial window for diplomacy that remains open.
OK, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith there at the White House.